What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel, and today we are checking out a do-it-yourself kit here. It is the Tero Q215. It is a 215mm FPV racer do-it-yourself kit. Comes with everything you need to get you going, minus the receiver, so you'll have to provide your own receiver. As you can see, I've taken everything out of the static free bag containing all of these parts, laid them out on the table here, kind of dry fitted everything to see where everything is going to go, and I've kind of assembled the frame somewhat. I didn't tighten it all up, but this is how the frame is going to look like. So I got the standoffs already screwed onto the bottom plate, and the bottom plate has recessed holes here so that the screws mount on flush onto the frame itself, and the arms are chamfered as well. They are the 5mm arms, and the supporting plates are all 2mm, and it was pretty easy to put these together. There's two screws holding on to each of the arms. One of them is short and one of them is slightly long, and the slightly long ones will be holding onto the ESCs and the whole stack eventually. And there's also some other holes there pre-drilled for 20 by 20 formation stack as well. So very nice little frame construction, very easy to put together. These little round nuts on the top sandwich plate was already placed on the plate itself, so I didn't have to put those. I just had to put the screws on there. So very easy to construct this portion. And here is the top plate, and it is measuring in at 2mm as well, so it's going to go on the top just like this here. And this is another little plate, and it's a back plate, so it goes in the back of the quadcopter, right inside of those standoffs, and this is to hold the VTX antenna. There's a couple of holes there, so we're gonna eventually put that on there. And we also get a couple of side plates, and these are the camera mounting side plates. Once we get the camera going on, we're gonna put those on there too. So let's take a look at the motors first. The motors are the 2206 2600 kV motors. Looks kind of familiar. I've had these motors on my X215 Pro. I believe it's the same type of motors, and the motor wires come pre-cut at an angle and already tinned, so you know where everything goes. This is the clockwise motor, and this is the other clockwise motor, and as you can see, it is angled this way, so you know where each of the motors where they are going to be positioned. And these are the counterclockwise motors. Notice the silver nut, and the clockwise motors come with the black nut, so I've positioned them accordingly. And here is the ESCs. It is the 4-in-1 BFIGHT S 30 amp with 40 amp peak and 50 amp burst D-Shot 600 ESCs, able to support input battery power from 2 to 6S, and they will be going right on top of those screws right there. I'm going to put some spacers right in there, and here are all the screws and spacers that come along with the kit. There's a couple of bags containing 8 screws each, and these will be the motor mounting screws. So all of the other screws and standoffs are for the build itself, for the stack. So the ESCs are going to go right here, and I've already attached all of the wiring harnesses to where it's going to go. So there's the wiring harness for the signal that's going to go to the flight controller, and the connection for that is in the front of the flight controller. And as you can see, I have placed all of the wiring harnesses on the flight controller to see exactly where they're going to go. Here's the camera, and it's very easy to figure out which one goes where. It doesn't come with any instructions on this kit whatsoever, but everything sort of kind of is self-explanatory. Here's a 3-pin connector, and it is open, so that would be the receiver, and it is a 3-pin connector right here on the flight controller. And since this is the front of the flight controller, there is the camera, and that is also a 3-pin connector as well, and you got a 4-pin connector in the back, and that would be for the LED light slash buzzer combination here. And we have the MMCX connector with a pigtail. I've already connected the antenna on here, and this is a Pagoda antenna. And this flight controller is the Richard Lance F4 Pro 2 version 2 flight controller, and it was preloaded with BetaFlight Omnibus F4 SD 3.4.0 firmware, and it already has built-in BetaFlight OSD, and the input voltage on this is also 2 to 6S, and it has a built-in TBS Smart Audio as well on UART3, and it also has a built-in VTX, and the VTX is a 48 channel VTX, switchable from 25, 200, 600 to 800 milliwatt, and you can switch that with this little button. Single press it and you can switch the channels, the frequency, and the power output with this button. And it also supports the TBS Smart Audio, so you are able to change all that parameter through the OSD menu with your transmitter. And the Pagoda antenna that we were given doesn't have any markings on them, so it's kind of a generic Pagoda antenna here. And the camera that we are given is the no branded camera as well. It doesn't have any brand on it, but it is a 700 TV line 1/3 inch CMOS sensor camera with a 2.1 millimeter lens. On the website it says it has a 2.5 millimeter lens, but obviously we got the 2.1 millimeter lens. And we are also given a couple of sets of props, and one set is in green, the other set is in red, and they are the 5048 tri-bladed props. Kind of looks like the Racer Star tri-bladed props. And what else do we get in the box? We got a battery plate for the bottom of your battery, and we have a buckle style Velcro strap for your battery. These are pretty nice. And we got some braided coverings for your motor wires. They feel kind of plasticky. They don't feel like they're made out of material. They are kind of plasticky, so I don't know if I'm going to put these on here. Maybe I'll just leave those out. I kind of like the way the motor wires show up, and I can just put some electric tape on there. That looks pretty nice. And we got some zip ties, 4 in total, and we got a battery non-slip pad. Very nice. 4 or 3M sticky tape on one side. Looks kind of like a urethane pad, so pretty nice. And we also have a capacitor to attach here. It is a 1000 microfarad capacitor. I'm not sure what brand it is or anything like that. It says over here, I don't know, it says Chong X or something like that. Anyways, I'm not really familiar with capacitor or VENT. Anyway, we'll put that on. It's got a negative side, and the unmarked side is the positive side, so place that accordingly with the XT60 connector that we are going to place on the 4-in-1 ESC. So this is the battery power. Kind of odd that we got the connector coming off from the side. I kind of would have preferred it coming out from the back, so I kind of played around with the ESC positioning. Maybe I could put it this way and whatnot, but the fact is the flight controller needs to go this way first, and the connection here will hit this connection even though you have that spacer in between. So yeah, we're gonna have to put the ESC sideways like so. So we're gonna have to put the XT60 connector from the side sticking out, and the capacitor sticking out from the side as well. So that is just about everything that came out of the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building it, and as I go along I'll show you what I am doing so you can catch up to the build project. All right, so let's go ahead and check that out. Okay, so the first thing that I've done so far is to place the XT60 battery connector to the ESCs and the capacitor as well. So if you look at the ESCs very carefully, we got motor number 1, we got motor number 2, and motor number 3, and motor number 4. So the ESCs are going to go on the quadcopter just like this. Next up, solder on the motors. Okay, so just dry fitting the flight controller on top of the ESCs before I solder on the motor wires, and I realized that the VTX, the MMCX connector is very closely almost touching the motor connection of the ESCs from the top. So what I'm probably going to do is place the motor wires on the bottom of the ESCs instead of the top of the ESCs. Right, I got 2 motors soldered on there, and I did it on the bottom of the ESCs, and there you go. Not bad for a rookie. 2 more motors to go. Okay, got the other 2 motors soldered on, and it is ready to go. And I've tightened up all of the screws from the bottom of the frame. Excuse me. And also put these white plastic spacers on those screws, and we'll put the ESCs right on top of those. Okay, got all of the motors screwed on there, and it is starting to come to shape a little bit. What I had to do was the signal wires, I had to put them underneath of the ESCs and run them out through the front of the copter, because I tried a dry fit with the flight controller on top, and there's not much room to be had between the ESCs and the flight controller because of this little transmitter thingy of the flight controller all-in-one VTX. So it was squeezing down the wires, so I ended up putting it underneath of the ESCs, which there's tons of room underneath there. So we are looking pretty good. So next up, I'm going to place the flight controller on top of the ESCs, and let's check that out. All right, got the 4 screws holding down the flight controller preliminarily screwed on there, not tight yet. So I think the next thing to do here is to place the LED light fixture as well as the mount for the VTX. All right, finally got the LED light, the buzzer fixture attached to the rear standoffs via a couple of zip ties, the provided zip ties. Now I placed the LED light fixture upside down. Normally it will go the opposite way with that little cutout, with this little cutout on the bottom, because the XT60 connector will be coming off from the back of the bottom. But since we have it on the side, I was able to flip it over so that I have enough room for this antenna connector. And as you can see, the antenna connector plate is already there. Now the LED light fixture wiring harness had to go through that antenna mounting fixture. As you can see, there's a couple of more holes onto the side in the middle, and there's another antenna fixture hole on the bottom, which I was not able to use because it would mean that the antenna will go all the way down to the bottom here, and there's not enough room. So it will still fit, as you can see, just like that. So I will have enough room to place the antenna in and out if I need to replace it once the top plate goes on there. Okay, I also connected the motor signal wiring harness to the flight controller from the ESCs. So I think next up, we're going to do the camera mount. All right, so I got the camera mounted on the side plate and pushed it in to those 2 little grooves on the bottom there and here. So it fits on there pretty good, and it must go through those 2 grooves as well to hold the side plate down, because the side plate is not mounted to anything else. And initially what I've done was I placed this screw here, and I had this side plate flipped over facing the opposite way. But once you do that, the camera lens is sticking out pretty far out, so that is not a very good situation. And I was looking at the website, and I see that there's a photo of the quadcopter just like this, and they do have it mounted just the way I have it mounted here. So I'm just copying what the website product page displays as the photo of the finished product. So just like this, and looks like that is the correct way to put it. Everything is fitting just right, and the standoff holes are just where it needs to be. So that is how you mount the FPV camera in the front, and it is looking pretty decent now. Okay, here we are almost done. So what I have done so far is I've placed everything ready to go in its own spot, And what I've done was I placed some hot glue just for place holding of those side plates for the camera and the back plate for the VTX to go on, because they're just notoriously moving around. Once you got it in there, you're working on it and they just pop right back out. So I put some hot glue so they don't move around until I put the top plate on and screw it down. I'll remove the hot glue. And also I've attached a receiver. It is the FrSky XM Plus receiver. And nowadays these XM Plus receivers do not come with that clear shrink wrap. I don't know why. So I ended up putting some black tape to hide it. I've already flashed the latest firmware on it so I can get some RSSI showing up on my OSD. So just a matter of now placing the receiver underneath of the top plate and mounting the top plate right down and securing the XM Plus receiver wires and taping up the little bundle of motor wires onto the arm, and just about it. So let me go ahead and finish that up and I'll be right back. All right, we are back, and I think I got everything put together now. Everything is ready to go. I put the top plate on there and I put the FrSky XM Plus receiver double-sided sticky tape to the bottom of the top plate, and all of the screws were retightened. I went back around and tightened up all of the screws, and guess what? The motor screws I did not tighten, so that was good that I went back. And the standoff screws on the bottom, I did not tighten them up all the way because I didn't put the top plate on yet. So all of the screws I tightened up, and also I've secured down the receiver antennas, the XM Plus receiver antennas, route them to the bottom and put some zip tie, the little thicker heavy duty zip tie, and place the antennas like so. It's been working for me on some of the quadcopters, so I kind of like it like that. It's not flapping up on the top, but if it doesn't give me good reception, then I'm going to place it on the top and make a little V out of those. And looks like the Pagoda antenna is going to be all right. I've been kind of fooling around with it so I can place it a little higher. It doesn't look like the props are going to hit it. So that is just about it. I've already kind of plugged it in and bound the receiver to my Taranis QX7, so I know everything is working. So all I need to do now is get into Betaflight and configure the modes and check the OSD and stuff like that, and PIDs and stuff, and we are good to go. So nothing left but put the props on and configure and take it outside for a little spin. Now there's some couple of things that I left behind. So there were two zip ties that I left behind, and these braided wire covers I left behind. I don't really like those, so I kind of like it just the way like this. I think it looks better. So there's the bottom plate, protective bottom plate for the battery. I can always put that on when I strap on the battery. And oh yeah, I put the battery non-slip pad on there, the sticky pad, put it on there, and also the Velcro strap for the battery. I'm not sure if I really like that big metal buckle on the side of my battery, but we'll test it out just the way it came out of the box. And oh yeah, I put a little zip tie to secure down the XT60 connector as well. So the only thing is this, yeah, the capacitor is sticking out like a sore thumb. As long as it doesn't get in the way, it is fine. But if I crash and hit something from the side, yeah, that'll get ripped out, as well as the antenna for that matter. So I think it should be pretty good to go. And inside of this box of screws, I've got all these stuff left over. And I think those silver round nuts, they were supposed to take place of these black nuts, but these black nuts already came attached to the plate, so I didn't need to put these silver nuts. And those 4 screws, they are just the same length as the screws that is holding down the stack from the bottom. These screws that go right up from the bottom up to here. So I guess they give you 4 extra screws, I'm pretty sure, because there's no place else I can use those screws. You never know. But that is just about it. So let's take it outside for a spin around the block.